All right, are we ready?
Yep.
All right, welcome back, Guardians, to the Idaho Vanguard podcast as part of Idaho 5051 with your host, Sonia,
Hello.
Lotus,
Sup?
and I'm Pine. We are here to bring you journalism against tyranny, talking all things Idaho and national politics, helping break down the headlines and bylines so you can understand what is happening in our communities, our state, and our country without panic or overwhelm. Today's episode, we're talking about the SAVE Act, it's dead, and the current Idaho legislation testimonies that have been going on and going a little bit viral, as well as a surprising ally in the mix. All right, Sonia, you want to kick us off because you're the one who watched the Thursday testimonies. I was unfortunately, both Lotus and I were at work at the time and we couldn't watch them.
Yeah, I didn't just watch. I was in a position where when we found out, I honestly think it was a few hours before.
Yeah, they do that on purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know when it actually got announced, but, word spread like fire, I'm sure as quick as it could.
Yeah.
And I ended up knowing that it was at 1:30, and I found out at like 12:30.
Yeah.
So I was like, my day is such that I can back burner the other stuff I was going to work on and go to this, both to flex my muscles, right?
Yeah.
My being an engaged citizen muscles, and also just to be able to be that voice in the room, right? And there were other people that were already voices in the room, but now I can come and bring that experience to everybody so that we can all be collectively more engaged, and know where to even submit feedback online. So when I showed up, there was a little clipboard, and the QR code was old. It didn't work. But I typed out the website, and it led me to a place that was close enough that I was able to navigate to find where I could submit an application to speak.
Yeah.
And it added me to the list. There was no way, based on how popular the feedback for this bill was, that I was going to get to speak. But I got to submit my online version, and they told me that I was added to the queue. You can also literally just say you're opposed or in favor. So if you don't have anything you want to say, but you just want to be quick about it, and you work at a desk, right? So that you can see when these things come through, you can do that.
Well, about that.
Yeah.
So the Idaho law technically requires that they announce it within 24 hours, right?
Oh, okay.
That they're supposed to give the people of Idaho warning and opportunity.
I did not know that.
Well, they manipulate that and they will announce it at a 1 o'clock, 1:30 testimony. They'll announce it at 10 a.m. that day and say, well, it's within 24 hours and stuff like that.
Within 24 hours?
Yeah.
24 hours notice?
Instead of giving people advance notice. The other thing they like to do is if they're going to have an 8 a.m. testimony, they announce it at 5 p.m. the previous day.
Yep.
Right? So that people just don't know. And they do that on purpose because they don't actually want your feedback. They don't want the community feedback, particularly on things that
it certainly feels that way.
Yeah, it's on purpose. It's 100% intentional.
And that's why we need to vote those people out.
Exactly.
But so this particular committee was the local government committee from the House.
Yeah.
And I think all the committee meetings happen in the basement level. They call it the garden level of the Capitol.
It's a basement.
If you go online, Pine had put the website.
It's
IdahoPTV.org.
Idaho Public Television. You can follow the legislation, the live streaming of the legislation anytime you need to.
It's called Idaho in Session.
Yeah.
So you can search that up on the internet and then watch. And you could go back and see the recording. Maybe you'll see me walking around in the background a little bit as I came into the meeting late. That committee had 3 bills that they were hearing and deciding whether or not they were going to pass committee and then go into the House proper to be voted on. It was H626, which was it was called Development Impact Fees. And do you want to read that, Lotus? Because I didn't do that part.
Yeah, so H626 aims to amend existing laws governing development impact fees, specifically requiring that if a county adopts impact fees for jails or courthouses, cities within that county must also collect them. So effectively, if I understand that correctly, they want to change the county laws about how much fees are for the jail and courthouses.
Honestly, like in that meeting, those portions of it seemed a little mixed together and a little back and forth.
Yeah.
And everybody just seemed to be nodding along with whatever that was.
It basically sounds like the county is trying to raise city fees because the county raised their fees.
Okay.
I don't speak legalese very well, but that is effectively what I'm hearing from it. But did it make any more sense when you were there?
No,
Okay.
it didn't. It all seemed pretty non-controversial and just like what normal healthy government might look like. I would hope that the representatives know what's being referred to, but my confidence has gotten lower as time has gone on. So anyway, somebody wanted this bill passed. Wasn't very exciting. Then the next one was 749. Oh, and by the way, I think they saved the exciting ones for last on purpose.
Yeah.
They want to run out of time.
Because they want to run out of time, yes.
And they don't want to, because then they'll talk about it the next day.
Mhm.
But if you took time off to be there for that day, it's a lot harder to get time off for the next day,
day.
So the
right?
next one was 749, annexation by cities. And honestly, this one made me feel a little sweet that there was somebody in Barbara Ehart's district, 33A, that had a particular issue with needing to upgrade from septic to this, like the public sewage.
Yeah.
But it being unaffordable for this particular family, and it represented a more like systemic issue.
Yeah.
And a problem with the code, the city, like the code from the state that the cities have to follow, or I don't know exactly how it works, but it was great to see that work well, where, you know, they were able to give their testimony, and they couldn't, the sweet older couple couldn't get this virtual like Zoom meeting pulled up, and so their representative called them and held up the speakerphone to the microphone and let them give their testimony to the committee. So it was very much like empowering citizens to be heard and have their issues addressed, and like I applaud that, right?
Yeah.
It looked from where I was sitting like that was absolutely healthy government managing regulations responsibly.
I like that.
Yeah, it was cool.
All right. I was a little questionable about it first when I first added that information in there, but I'm glad that you explained it. I like that.
Well, and I mean, that was just my perception being in the room, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some problem with it that just totally went right over my head, but
Yeah, because the bill itself was, quote, seeks to amend city annexation laws by allowing property owners, particularly enforced annexations, to opt out of connecting to municipal water and sewer systems, protecting the right to maintain private septic systems rather than forcing compliance with city infrastructure. So yeah, it sounds like she's effectively trying to carve out a way for people that were forced to separate at some point, maybe before they bought the property, to not have to pay that fee of connecting to the cities if they don't need to.
So
Yeah,
I
'cause I
grew up on a septic tank,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
same.
it's completely self-contained.
Mhm.
But what happens if, like, let's look back to like Meridian, used to be considered way out in the sticks. It was the middle of nowhere. So if you had a small property where you were running off of septic, and then the city kind of grew around you, forcing those people to join into the sewer system is expensive.
$100,000 was the case, the example case that this couple
So
was
this
bringing.
bill sounds like it's trying to give them a way to opt out of that if they've already got a viable septic system set up.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good option,
want that.
because if you're not going to pay for it as a government to force that, then you don't get to demand that.
Well, yeah,
of
you
people.
can't force someone to pay $100,000 fucking dollars.
Well, it's a grandfather clause, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were, you had a little small farm with horses and stuff, and then these giant suburbs come around you, they can't get mad at you for your livestock and stuff because you've been there longer than they have. It's just being grandfathered in, and
Which
that.
was an issue out in Meridian, actually.
Yeah, it
as
was a
they've
huge
been growing,
issue in
like out
Meridian.
Houston,
Yeah.
right? Because that used to all be fucking farms.
Yeah.
I used to do in-home care out there, and I remember literally driving and being like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've gone too far because I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And now I drive that same direction, and I'm like, I don't recognize this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's the way Meridian used to be. And like, well, my dad's place up north, that he had, they actually sold it off and moved to the place they currently have, because they had like 4 acres in this little like farmette community. After we sold our family farm, the kids all grew up and moved away, so he wasn't breeding horses anymore. And he had this little farmette, and all of his neighbors were selling out, And where one house stood, they were putting in dozens and like apartments and all kinds of stuff. And eventually he was just like, we're going to have nothing. They're going to force us out, or they're going to make it so that it's so uncomfortable for us to have our whole, our livestock here. So he went and he sold that and he bought something further out with more property. But like that happens a lot to small farms. Is you've got 3 or 4 acres, but your neighbors sell and they put in a small little subdivision there, and then your other neighbors, and then next thing you know, you as the farmer,
you're gonna get me on an off-topic soapbox here because
Yeah.
I am a soil nerd.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's so wasteful when these big developers come in and buy up the best soil,
Yeah.
and then just gut it.
And then put lawn on it.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah,
grow grass.
We're acting like all land is equally quality for growing things.
It
and
is
it's
not.
Anyway,
It is not.
Anyway, back on track. Then things started to get weird, which was the reason I was there. H659 Immigration Memo of Agreement is what it was titled.
That was the one.
It was brought by
Dale Hawkins.
thank you,
2B.
Dale Hawkins in 2B.
What is that? That's
Let me figure it out.
It's like
Bonner,
it's
right?
not
Or
the
Boise.
most north, right? The most north I think is the Bonner County one.
Yeah, that's
It's
Boundary County. Yeah.
It's slightly lower than that, and then there's a carve out around some of the cities up there that I'm blanking on the
It's
names
Bear
of.
Lake County.
What?
Bear Lake County.
Bear Lake County.
It's
Well,
brought by
actually
him.
it actually covers a couple different counties.
Bear Lake is southern.
And this is an aside. Y'all are getting me down these rabbit trails.
Yeah.
But I was going down a little like, how gerrymandered is it rabbit trail?
It's pretty bad, actually.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. If you look based on Ballotpedia at how those districts are voting, District 4 seems pretty close to like, okay, it had like 65 to 34 split on the votes between the parties. And so it does seem like maybe if there was any gerrymandering, it was to contain all of the Dem votes in that district.
Yeah.
Because the surrounding districts are more like 80-20 or like, 80 something high to the something in the teens. So basically purely red.
I love it when government pages can't be opened.
But anyway, that's an aside. This guy is 2B, and he came in. I'm not sure where he got the idea. We could talk about theories later on, and maybe somebody will get to the bottom of it. But the point of the bill was to mandate, emphasis on the word mandate. They're already free to make this choice if they want to, and some of them have. It's going to mandate all Idaho police departments apply to have a 287G agreement with ICE.
And what is the 287G agreement?
The 287G agreement is, it provides some amount of funding and resources to local police departments and requires them, because of receiving that federal funding, to then perform certain services and activities for ICE.
So according to the ACLU, the 287G program allows partnership between ICE and local law enforcement agencies, enabling local police to perform immigration enforcement duties. In effect, local taxpayer dollars and personnel are used to execute federal duties. So the funding for these local things is coming directly from the cities they're in,
Yes,
and
but
not from the federal government, which is part of the issue.
But part of the 287G agreements is if when a State Department applies, at least this is literally according to this guy, whatever his name was that we just said it. My memory is terrible. At least according to Dale Hawkins, there's federal funding that will come into that community, which we all know how Republicans, myself included, feel about federal money coming into local governments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the
Well, because that comes with strings.
So
exactly,
we are
they come with
using-
strings.
We're
We
using
don't
the
want.
task force model also.
So the 287G agreement is a task force thing.
Well, so there's 3 different models. There's a jail enforcement model, a warrant service officer model, and the task force model. And
Yeah.
Idaho is using the task force model.
Well,
whereas
that's what we're actually doing. What
So let's
Little
pause.
said.
Let's
Yeah.
pause right here because and if anybody's listening to this and they don't know the context, Idaho, with the Idaho State Police, already have a 287G agreement.
Yep.
And I don't know what other police departments within Idaho have one, but
I have a list.
I remember hearing it mentioned.
So the 287G agreement was originally stated by Brad Little with the Idaho State Police was going to be a JEM agreement, right? Which was just basically supposed to be a transportation and they can use our jails.
The jail enforcement model.
Yeah, the jail enforcement model. However, that is not what happened, and it ended up being a task force model because he lied to Idahoans. He lied to you
Straight up
about what they were actually going to be doing. Here is the reason that those type of agreements are really problematic. A, it puts a burden on the taxpayer to fund additional resources to our local police department.
Mm-hmm.
It takes our local police department from doing their actual job, their actual work.
Yep.
And more importantly, there is a very clear distinction in our law enforcement between state, local, and federal enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason for that. Because nobody wanted the federal enforcement government to be coming in and policing in areas locally and doing local police work that interferes with what local communities need or want, right? Sheriffs is an elected position, which ideally when you elect a sheriff, it should be reflecting what the community wants in terms of their policing.
as long as you have more than one person running.
So
Yeah.
this gets to
the problem is local governments are not supposed to be enforcing federal laws at any juncture. The 287G agreements violate that or break that. Now, they were originally created to do things like task force models, right? When we've got the Brian Koberger case or anything like that, where there's a big case and they need additional law enforcement help, either on a federal or a local level, those two agencies can agree to work together. That's where they're coming in with ICE. That's how they're using it with ICE and CBP. Lotus.
So we apparently have had this model before, and it was the task force model specifically, not the jail enforcement and not the warrant service officer models. But the task force model was abandoned during the Obama administration due to patterns of racial profiling and discrimination.
Yep.
And no one in Idaho, none of our districts were using it since 2020, and like the earliest was 2/19/2025. So 1 year ago, Owyhee signed task force models, Washington, Kootenai, Bonneville, Bingham, and the state police, all within the last year.
So if I may,
Well, we remember the Owyhee County Sheriff went over to the regime and, wore his cowboy hat indoors, which is a faux pas, and then, kissed the ring and sucked up to the regime.
so if I may.
Yeah.
That's what Dale Hawkins presented, right? Is this idea that we would mandate, they either have to do it, they either have to apply, or they have to write a letter explaining why they won't apply, and then come up with some way of, like, whatever level they are willing to work with ICE. So I think what it sounds like the point of the bill really is to do like this purity test on police departments to try to push out and purge officers.
I'm not sure purity test
and departments.
Is the right word. I think it's a litmus test.
Yeah, the litmus, but I get what you're saying.
I'm saying it's intending to, like, from whatever Dale Hawkins' perspective is like purify as and get rid, like push out anybody who's not going to be okay with this. And if you're not, okay, yeah. If you're not going to comply, you're probably going to end up leaving. Or there's going to be some political drama.
They're not going to bring you back. There's going to be some sort of workplace drama.
A litmus test to identify and then use that to purify.
Yeah. Purify.
So
very
because it's very against freedom of thought. And then it was interesting watching who showed up, right? Because I showed up and I was like, well, I'll say something, but I part of the reason I didn't sign up early is because I was like, if anybody gets to speak, it shouldn't necessarily be me first. I'm going to wait to sign up because if other people want to jump on it, I want to let them. And some good people did end up speaking. I don't know how I feel about my approach there. Your mileage may vary.
We may have to pause.
Okay.
And we're back.
Okay, great.
Go.
All right, so after this bill was presented, there was some virtual testimony or virtual advice, I think. It wasn't testimony, but it was like they requested somebody come in, a lawyer, to discuss the constitutionality. And my perception, and y'all
Do we
can
know this
go.
lawyer's name?
I don't, but,
I'm gonna
but
find it.
it's going to be very findable because we talked about how you look it up and you can watch everything that was said, right?
Yeah.
He, from my understanding of sitting in that room and listening, was that he was advising that this is not constitutional.
No.
And it would be difficult to rework to make it constitutional.
Yeah.
Because the point of it is
like
forcing these state departments to apply or go through these other processes that seem not that bad, but also like politically motivated.
Yeah.
And so that happened, and there was a few more discussions amongst members of the council. But the part that really stood out to me was then when we got to the testimony, which they carved out 45 minutes just for testimony, but they allowed some questions. I guess they only ended up getting through like 5 or 6 people that gave testimony. But the one that really stood out to me was Officer Donahue. He is the Canyon County Sheriff, I believe. And he also came representing the National Sheriff's Association. So I thought at first the Sheriff's Association was just the Idaho Sheriff's Association, but when I looked him up, it seems like he was at least the president for the 2024 to 2025 year, and I'm guessing he continued on with that this last year. I didn't look it up yet to confirm, but I do remember him saying that he was representing the Sheriff's Association as well. And he was very clearly against this bill. He did not want this bill to be presented to the House. He did not want this bill to pass committee. And it was because a lot of the stuff that Pine was just saying about the resources, the people power that he has to figure out how to provide to do his job well.
Well, and it's Idaho, so none of our government agencies, like our police or anything other than our private for-profit prison system, are funded fully. Most of the sheriff's departments, especially in rural counties, are operating with the skeleton crew, right?
And I should add that, like, I personally think that federal funding, you got to know the strings that are attached. Like, it's not that you never take it, you never work with anybody else.
But there's always strings.
But we need, as Idaho, we need our government to represent us. And that's what, like,
and not whatever the interests are of DC every 4 years.
That's what has been very clearly to me not happening.
No, of course not, because none of our bills are being written by our Idaho legislature.
And I want to emphasize who Sheriff Donahue is a little further than that.
Yeah.
He also has no room to say he doesn't support ICE. Nobody could say that Sheriff Donahue does not support ICE because he oversaw that raid in Wilder.
Yeah.
At this point, he is, like, infamous for working with ICE, right?
Yeah.
And he is here saying we should not be forcing our local police departments to apply for 287G agreements. I guess we could skip to the next bit of testimony because I wasn't there for that part. I actually had to leave. I had to go pick up my kids from school, but I know some people were talking about it in our group. We'll just call him Scabbers. He's a local. He's drama magnet.
So
he likes to do stuff for attention, which is why we're not naming his real name. Because
we're gonna call him
to get what he's looking for.
Scabbers because he is scabby, and while we are not in the Rowling fan club by any stretch of the imagination, the character's name does fit.
It's very fitting.
It's very
so
fitting.
The look, to be honest.
Honestly. So this guy is well known in our local community. He showed up at the Boise City Hall Pride flag protest deal dressed as a priest and tried to burn a pride flag attached to a cross.
Emphasis on tried.
Emphasis on tried. It was really pathetic.
It was polyester and it was windy, so the plastic would not catch fire, and it was hilarious. I have some really
great photos of it, though, guys.
I literally
like
told
some
him
great
as we were trying
ones.
to do that. I was like, "Look, even Jesus doesn't want you to burn the flag."
Yeah,
like,
and he also is well known for showing up to some Tesla protests dressed as Hitler. So this guy is a
piece of shit
from the highest order, which is why we are not naming his actual name, because we feel like a lot of his behavior is attention grabbing, right? He just wants to be the headline. The embarrassing headline.
Don't feed the trolls.
The embarrassing headline for Idaho, which seems to be the only way we make national news. But Sonia can tell you all about this guy's testimony that he gave.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, well, I saw the video.
Okay.
He showed up. I watched the videos after the fact. Boise Blackbirds had it. I think Social Lindsay also had it. So I caught the video. And I unfortunately work during the day, so a lot of these legislative stuff I just can't make. He showed up in brownface. Not just brownface. He had a fake...
To the testimony?
Yep.
Yeah, did you not see that? He was dressed in a poncho and a fucking sombrero.
He had the hat.
Yeah, he had
the
a fake
mustache.
I heard about him doing that, but I did not think it was actually
No. That's why they sent him away the first time, is because he would not stop speaking shitty Spanish and not even sentences.
not even real Spanish,
Yeah,
right? He used the Spanglish that everybody knows because they've watched way too much television.
So he's the town joker. He's the,
Let me see if I can find a picture for you. We're not going to share it, but I'm going to show you.
Yeah, we're not going to share it. You can go look this up. He shows up in full-on brown face with a poncho, the sombrero. He's got a fake mustache, and then he's using a fake accent. He has makeup on, and he's pretending one of his little, I don't know, maybe his boyfriend, is right there with him pretending to be his quote-unquote translator. And it was horrible. At one point, they sent him away. At another point, he came back. And he did it again. But here's the thing where it gets really interesting and telling about our legislators. One of our legislators spoke up and was like, this is wholly inappropriate.
And that was 4 days ago. Because he was there 3 days before the one yesterday. And that's the one where he was in brownface.
So it wasn't yesterday that he was...
No, yesterday he came dressed normally. And I'm assuming because they... fucking beat him down.
So what happened is one of our legislators was like...
That is what I was understanding.
This is earlier. So unacceptable.
Yeah.
And then the chair of that particular committee allowed it to continue. And that was where things got, and then the audit, people got really upset because, they have kicked people out for wearing t-shirts that are too political.
They sanctioned me for calling them Nazis.
They will censure you if you're too radical and too whatever. But this guy shows up in brownface and he's allowed to continue. Because the chair was just like, well, he needs to give his testimony.
No, he does not.
No, he does not.
It's not a true testimony. It's a farce.
It was a performance.
Should not be allowed.
It was a performance. You can't have signs in there that say anything. You can't wear a t-shirt that's too overtly political or anything like that. You're just not allowed to do any of that in session. They're really strict about that, particularly with anything left-leaning.
And then he shows up just so over the top.
And they allow it.
Overtly racist.
Overtly. Not even questionably racist. And I would give anything for Idaho to stop making national news coverage for being a fucking embarrassment.
Well, that's why he does it.
Yeah, it's so that he can. It's the same reason that Skidmark holds his awesomeness of not straightness or whatever.
Motherfucker is choosing to be straight.
All right, so before we get too down the our favorite thing to howl at the moon about. He offered his testimony apparently while I was, doing my adult responsibilities. And then I was able to tune back in via the link to hear the very end, and I was shocked. And I shouldn't have been. I thought that I had learned enough lessons, but I was shocked when they went around and did the roll call or whatever they call it, and 4-11, so it passed with only 4 votes opposed and 11 in favor. Now 2 of the people that were opposed were Democrats, the only 2 Democrats in the committee. Birch and Church.
That'd be a cute little show.
Right? Yeah. And then the other 2 that I'm willing to entertain might have actual competence and morals and aren't going along with whatever the heck this was, right? Whatever sort of not pandering. I'm blanking on the word. Yeah, whatever was going on with literally a terrible bill that nobody wants being pushed forward.
That a lawyer says is unconstitutional.
Being pushed forward anyway. I forget the right word for it.
You know why?
I'm just
they
blanking
want to
on the
shove
word.
their head further up Trump's ass?
No, that has to do with money. It has to do with the Republican Party. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It's because the Republican Party in this state is predominantly funded by our favorite word, dark money, from out of state, and they want it passed. We are a testing ground. Us, Florida, and Texas are where they come and test the weird.
That was one thing
shit.
I wanted to get to, is that the person who brought the bill, Dale Hawkins, mentioned Florida in his initial presentation, and I've learned to listen for that. When I hear that, it sends off a little red flag in my mind about what other behaviors I might start to see around this particular topic, right? Because we had just had a bill that looked like healthy government working, right, about the sewage regulations. But this was pure shenanigans, and I'm still trying to really understand it, and maybe, only they know, and maybe they don't even fully understand it themselves.
No, they just do as they're told.
Sycophants? Is that
Yep,
the word?
sycophants, yeah.
Um,
Renfields out here.
So the two Republicans who might not be sycophants, right, are Josh Wheeler of 35B and Richard Cheatham of 28A. And again, y'all can go confirm that for yourselves if you watch the video of the votes. And then they immediately just cut off the recording at that point, because I guess it was a wrap, but I'm sure they still talked a little more.
Oh, yeah.
And then, everybody started filing out of the room. And now this is one step closer to becoming a thing that Idaho is going to have to deal with, just like so many other bills. So it's just wild to see how the government is not working.
Even on a local level. I mean, it's not working on a national level for sure.
Definitely not working on a local level. Well, so you mentioned that Florida thing, and I wanted to talk about the ALEC in the room, which is probably where that Florida comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so the American Legislative Exchange Council, which Pine has a whole soapbox and a half about.
So big. So big of soapbox.
Bigger than you.
Like 4 hours worth of material that I can go on about.
But basically, ALEC is, as is explained, is modern legislation that is drafted bills on topics like taxation, education, and energy that members can introduce in state legislators. The membership comprises of roughly 2,000 plus state legislators and private sector members, which that alone should piss you off. Focus areas. Their key initiatives focus on economic growth, education reform, and healthcare transparency. I don't believe a single word of that sentence that they put out there. Not fucking all. So they have influenced or pushed more than 1,000 model bills, and with over 100 have been passed into law. So that's pretty fucking gross. Having effectively someone's AI pet project writing bills for Florida, Texas, and Idaho, which is why we all seem to mirror each other.
It's not a coincidence, y'all.
Not at
it's on
all.
purpose.
It's on purpose. And they don't care about making healthcare transparent. If they did, they would be passing laws to get rid of third-party insurance companies and build Medicare for all, build healthcare for everyone. That is what they would do if they cared about healthcare transparency. They don't care about education reform unless it's putting kids back to work in factories, and they do not care about economic growth unless it is the pockets of CEOs, and that is it.
So, I do want to say one more thing. All of these senators are up for the primaries.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And the general election.
Yep, they are up for re-election this year, so guess what your job is.
Right, so now is the prime time to really try to have those conversations in a way that the people in your life are able to receive, right?
Yep.
The point isn't, you don't persuade anybody, right, by telling them what to think. You invite them to use their critical thinking skills and believe in them, that there's somewhere, if they dig deep down, they will find the ability to stand up for what's right. If you empower them with some education.
Ask them open-ended questions. Ask them to question their own thought process. If they say women are using abortion as birth control, okay, where are the facts? Okay, please show me the statistics. Can you tell me where you got this information from? Make them think it through, because it is a lot harder to stick by some bullshit facts when you're actively logically thinking it through.
Yep.
Because that's the thing. It's going to make it their idea because they're pulling it from their own brain.
And we don't have to get into these hot button topics.
No, that's just always the one that comes to
It's
mind.
red meat for these bases because it's culture war stuff. And I'm actually trying to figure out if there's
Don't get dragged into the culture war under any circumstances.
Well,
no, just ask them to
here's the
question
thing,
your
though.
own beliefs.
Our people that we care about are being dragged into the culture war, right?
Well, yeah.
And so
But we don't need to be in there fighting it. What we can do is stand on the side with a hand out saying, are you actually drowning?
You look
can you
at
stand up?
where you think you can actually have a conversation that will push the needle forward, right? And so I do feel like this particular topic with this particular bill, with Sheriff Donahue coming up and speaking against it, and then them pushing it through anyway, is an example that really highlights the level of corruption that we're dealing with. There's no excuses, because this is not a culture war conversation, because it's not about whether or not ICE should be around.
It's about whether or not counties can afford to be doing their job for them. Meanwhile, let's not forget that ICE has a budget larger than the entire Marine Corps.
Larger than what, 17 other large countries' entire militaries?
Yeah.
So it could be possible to have, if you could stay away from any of the politically chargedness, right? To have conversations about representation and whether or not these congressmen that have voted for something that was unconstitutional, and that the literal
makes no sense.
president of the National Sheriff's Association showed up to testify against.
Yeah.
And doesn't align with anybody's values. They were sitting there in that meeting room, you listen to the testimony, and talking about like federal money and taking federal money and what strings are attached, and is this wise policy, and nobody was willing to say what all the strings that were attached were, presenting the information. It was just, we should do this. It was very much, it felt like a culture war topic being forced in where it didn't need to be. It wasn't even actually a culture war thing, because it's meant to serve the big picture narrative for somebody, dark money wise.
Well, here's what it's. Part of that dark money is the Heritage Foundation and ALEC, et cetera, are often a part of dark money, right? What they're doing is they're attempting to consolidate power and legal enforcement through a federal operation, which is the polar opposite of everything that Republicans are supposed to stand for.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact opposite. It is increased expense on our taxpayers, which can't afford it.
Nope.
It is increased workload on our rural districts and jurisdictions and a sheriff's office. Remember, there are whole cities in this state who do not have a police force outside of the sheriff's department, right? Because that serves the whole county. Yeah, because there's just not enough to go around. So we're talking understaffed organizations anyways that are not going to have the ability to do what they're asking them to do, and then whatever strings are attached. But it is about ultimately consolidating power into a federal branch and undermining states' rights and states' power. And that is a very serious problem if you're an Idahoan, because it is the antithesis of everything we stand for as a state. So it's important that we understand at a state level that we have been co-opted, that our state is a testing ground, and what they want is more federal control and less control to actual Idahoans. And so what you need to be doing is running in those races, and if you're not running in those races, look up who's challenging them and primary them, and then vote them out. And because there is no reason that these people should be doing this with our extensive budget cuts that are coming at the expense of Idahoan lives in the most literal sense of that word.
So along those lines, it's too late to declare now, because by the time you're listening to this, the last day to do so is today.
It's the 27th.
But, a lot of y'all already have or have already considered it or encouraged your friends to. So thank you for doing that, because we get to see the number of people that are stepping up.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people stepping up. I'm a registered Republican, so I will be voting in the Republican primaries. And I'm going to be the most informed voter I have ever been. And I'm going to try to bring other people along with me, right?
Yep.
Like Idaho 5051, we're going to be trying to figure out ways that we can get the information out there in front of people in a useful way that empowers them, doesn't overwhelm them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited for this, and I'm excited to be able to be like the sort of quality informed voter that I have wanted to be for like a decade, ever since I started trying to pay attention.
Yeah.
But that information is really hard to get.
They do that on purpose
people
too.
Don't want you to know.
They
Exactly.
do not want you to know
now,
who they are.
I don't want us to, because I know we want to talk about the SAVE Act, and so
Well, not today.
not today.
Oh, we're gonna have to push the SAVE Act. That's a bummer. I might go on a rant and talk about it later. But what we do need to know about the SAVE Act is that it is dead in the Senate because they do not have the votes to push it through.
Well, and I wanted to say one thing.
Which is good.
You talked about our Idaho and like our neighbors and stuff. I just want to remind everyone, I don't give a shit where you came from. I don't care if you're documented, if you're undocumented. If you're living here in Idaho and you're contributing to your community, you are an Idahoan.
Absolutely.
You are my neighbor.
Yep.
You are someone I'm gonna fucking protect.
Yep. 100%.
Yep.
And that is how all of us should view all of our neighbors.
Yes,
Yep.
they're people that live with us. They're our community members.
Yeah.
And the narrative that tries to get pushed, and that's where it's like, to have an effective conversation, if your family members have been what's it called, phobia trained or whatever, like they've been taught basically to believe certain things about immigrants, you're gonna find yourself talking to a wall.
Yeah.
Right? If you get to somebody that hasn't been indoctrinated yet, like, absolutely have that conversation and basically inoculate them against that sort of rhetoric.
Well, I mean, that's how MAGA bloomed, was basically pulling on that fear and that grievance, right?
Yep.
Everything that is wrong in my life is somehow someone else's fault.
Well,
Yeah,
and
'cause
they'll
they don't wanna take
twist stuff.
accountability.
So here's a more neutral, like a emotionally neutral example of the twisting.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be proven wrong if this is not what Dale Hawkins was doing. Maybe he didn't even intend to. But when he presented the bill, he said something about, if police department detains somebody, then they can call ICE, right? But then later on, when somebody asked a question, he said this only applies to people that are incarcerated.
Yeah.
So he is equating detainment with incarceration, which
Which
the little bit that I know about police work, which is very little, is that detaining somebody is basically saying, no, you can't leave, I might arrest you, we need to talk more.
Yeah.
Versus an incarceration, you've already been tried and proven guilty in a court of law.
He's conflating something that someone has already done with something someone might do. Right? So
and so he's steel manning this argument in favor of the bill in ways that, well, straw manning is when you are arguing against something that's weaker.
Oh, okay.
And steel manning is like when you're arguing against something that's stronger than it even is. So I might be misapplying it though, because it might be a slightly different rhetorical.
I've just not heard it used in a sentence before.
Anyway, he's moving the goalposts, right?
Yep.
Like he's presenting a bill that's saying one thing, and then he's defending something that's not what the bill actually is.
Now.
And for all that it really matters, right? And that's where we could get really lost in the weeds trying to argue with these people. So you got to bring it back to don't let them move the goalposts, right? We're talking about the bill that's actually here, and we're talking about these congressmen that went against what Sheriff Donahue, the president of the National Sheriff's Association, advised, and highlight the fact that there are 2 Republican people that voted against it.
Good for them.
Be skeptical, right? Because I noticed that in our federal level, it seems like certain people that are more at risk for getting primaried get the pass from the party, that they're allowed to vote against it. Like, it makes it look like things are less corrupt if there's some dissent.
It's because it allows them to have a better voting record. Because people
Exactly.
don't remember 6 fucking months ago.
Josh Wheeler and Richard Cheatham don't automatically get all the accolades from me, but it's like they might be all right. I'll look into it a bit more.
Well,
right?
on this, whatever their motives were, they voted correctly, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing, like on a national level, the House, they're not allowed to have dissent amongst the House, which is why Massey is in so much trouble with the party. because he just went, nope, I'm going to dig in and I'm a dog with a bone on this subject of the Epstein
Which
files,
is
and we're going
wild
to
to me
keep
that
going.
we can't have dissent. Like, let me just say,
In the
for
House,
record, we should be allowed to disagree in healthy democracy. And when there is a political
we're supposed
party
to.
that's not allowing
Yes.
people to disagree, we have big problems, and we need to break that apart. We need to get in, find the corruption, and rework it so that that cannot happen.
Exactly. But that is what has happened. The founding fathers foresaw Trump. They knew Trump was an inevitability of someone seeking that much power. He's King George all over again,
Yeah.
right? But they knew that was a probability. What they did not anticipate was that Congress would completely abdicate its power to their political party, to the president, and just roll over and play dead, which is what has happened.
Now-
and that is why things are so dysfunctional on a national level. That is why things are so dysfunctional in Idaho, because the political party that controls everything in Idaho, the Republican Party, and Dorothy Moon, will not allow dissent. If you dissent, you will be punished. And by usually that punishment is we will no longer allow you to be elected to office, which is the exact opposite of what we actually want. We want people to dissent. We want people to represent
100%.
their representatives, to represent their constituents, and to come forward and say, hey, this won't work for my counties, for the people that I represent, because of XYZ. I don't actually give a shit what their reasons are. It's probably purely a financial motivation, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic that these guys are concerned about the racism elements of it. They're probably concerned about the burden on the taxpayers in their counties, in their districts, who are all rural districts, by the way. I looked them up, and those are districts where there's no money. There's not money. A lot of those districts don't have proper schools. There are districts in this state where the schools have not been renovated since 1960, and they are literally falling apart. The kids are learning in those little temporary trailers, in the winter and in the summer, hot and cold, etc. Because the actual school building that exists is crumbling out from underneath of them. And meanwhile, our legislators, rather than listening to that and being like, hey, we maybe need to fix our funding, go, no, let's give people who are already wealthy a bunch of money back so that they can afford to continue to send their kids to a private institution, most likely out of state.
Yep.
Yeah. So along the lines of getting fired up about bills that are meant to be unjust.
Yep.
I would love to invite people to be aware of a lot of the anti-trans legislation that is getting pushed.
Tons of it.
So there's HB. I'm just going to name them off real quick and encourage you guys to go look them up. But mostly, from what it seems like, it's providing mutual aid. Like, care about the people. I'm not going to cry. Care about the people in our community that are being harassed by our government, that are being
targeted by our government.
Yes, targeted, being told that by our government that they are not valued, and that
They're calling them subhuman.
Yes, and so we as a community have to. Like, I understand that I'm making an imperative here, but like, I know I have to.
We have to stand up and protect these people.
So I'll name the bills: HB 572, HB 557, HB 606, HB 607. There might be one in there I missed, but that seems to be the bulk of them. And oh my gosh, go hug your trans people. Like, check in on them. If you don't know any trans people and you care about it, like, start showing up. I need people who are listening to this podcast to recognize what these bills are actually doing.
Yeah.
These bills are actually an attempt to literally legislate the lives of Idahoans into non-existence. They're not going to come out and say, like, we want to put them in front of a firing squad, but that is ultimately what the goal is to eliminate it. Now, I'm going to also remind people that they have been attempting to legislate and destroy and eliminate, and in some cases literally put in front of a firing squad, queer and trans individuals from ever, and it has not worked. We're still here.
Yep.
So what that means is that you need to stand up and you need to fight and you need to be calling your district representative and giving them hell when they vote for stuff like this, because they are actively attempting to kill Idahoans. And that is unacceptable from any level of government. Whether they're shooting them in the streets in Minnesota or they're trying to legislate them to the point that they just never leave their houses so that they stop existing in public. Unacceptable. It's anti-liberty, it's un-American, and it's anti the Constitution. All of those things should offend you as an Idahoan at your very, very core.
Yep.
The government has no ability, no right, and no legal jurisdiction to come in and tell you how you get to exist in this world and how you get to show up in this world. That is not their job, and they are attempting to do that. So what we're all going to do is we're going to show up at the primaries, and we're going to primary these
Sons of bitches.
we're going to primary them, and then we're going to vote them the hell out.
And between now and then, call your kids' schools. Protect trans kids. Make sure
people.
that those schools
Let them
are
know.
treating kids
Let
with
them know on a
respect.
human level that they are valued. And that doesn't
Yeah.
always mean that you have to be the person who's stepping into communities that you know nothing about, right?
Yep.
But what it does mean is that you can support those communities by, if you know somebody who knows trans people, like encourage them in that, right? Help
Yep.
say you see what they're going through and the way that their heart hurts for the people they know.
Call
And provide resources, right?
Call your
Because
school. Call your kid's school. Call your kid's principal and directly champion queer and trans students.
Yep.
Because when they start feeling that pressure, it goes up to the district. From the district, it goes up to the superintendent. And from the superintendent, it goes straight to the house where they have to say, like, I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of people calling me about this stuff, so knock it off. That is how we get around this. That is how we do.
Protecting trans kids is how we protect trans adults.
And be ready in your heart to react
Yeah.
when we lose people because of this.
And we will.
Right? Because these regulations are often paid for in blood. And so right
Always.
now what
We
we're
just
seeing with
lost-
these bills that are being passed, we already lost somebody a couple months ago
17-year-old, I believe.
Yeah.
in
Who
Idaho,
knows?
in Boise.
In Boise.
And
Took
so
their own life.
there are organizations that exist to support these communities, and I understand that some people might feel some type of way about those particular organizations for whatever reason. Like, now is not the time to be splitting hairs on what their perfect morals should be. They are
We have to
going
stop that.
through it
Altogether.
Yes.
We have to stop it. We have to stop, particularly those of us who are leaning in a left way. We have got to stop putting purity tests and litmus tests on membership to the coalition. It doesn't exist. We can't do that. We
So,
cannot do that.
Anyway, that's
yeah.
my appeal. That
Yeah.
was the conversation. That was what was on my mind yesterday. Thanks for
Yeah.
sorry that we didn't get to talk about the SAVE Act, I
No,
guess.
it's fine.
No, I mean,
we'll dig into that next time.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we'll just maybe
So protect your communities.
yeah. Protect kids,
Protect
even if they're not yours.
children.
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The government
That's
does not
the three
need
things.
to be going out and
Doing this.
harassing people. And read up the bills, read up on what they are. Maybe have your emotional support plan ready before you read them, because it's heavy.
Some of it's bad. Some of it's pointless. A lot of it is designed to cruelly disenfranchise poor people, sick people, queer people. But in the meantime, No Kings 3 happens on March 28th. We're planning something big. And that is what we've got for today. We've got to get going back to the real world, which none of us want to do full time anymore. We want to do this, but we're not there yet. So that's the last we've got for this episode, Guardians. If you want to get more involved in protecting our democracy, you can find more information at idaho5051.com. Please consider subscribing to us on Substack at idaho5051.com. You can become a paid or free subscriber to help grow the resistance, as well as our opportunities to build this out and continue to keep you informed. Remember to reach out to our communities and keep the lives and families destroyed by ICE or the Idaho legislature in your thoughts as we battle the scourge of creeping fascism side by side. See you later, Guardians.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.